Welcome, everyone. I'm AJ from T3 Technologies, and welcome to our podcast. This is a extension of our past episode regarding the work-from-home environment and also the hybrid environment. Today, we're going to dive deep with Tony on the trials and tribulations of navigating through a work-from-home and hybrid workforce. Hey, Tony, say hi to everyone.
Hi, everybody. We did this episode. We're going to continue on this conversation. The last one went a little longer, so we're going to sum it up because I have to today.
Yeah.
We're here.
We'll keep it on point today.
Yeah.
So, Tony, real quick, again, I know you went through everything that you've done in your life in the prior episode, but just a quick recap. Talk about
So my background, I started my whole communications journey in the Army. Well, actually, I would say that I was a phreaker back in the day when phones could still be phreaked.
Yep.
You know, I actually did the whole, I think the statute of limitations are up here. Let's not get in trouble. But I might have used like a tape recorder to make phone calls in the past on payphones.
No, you did not.
Yes. A lot of people thought that was fake, and it wouldn't have worked back then. Like at my age, when phreaking was a thing, they kind of caught on quickly. But if you would use, what was it, 1010 ATT? Do you remember that?
1010 321, all those different ones. Yeah.
We might have to bounce this off the lawyer and cut this out, Tim. But I used to be able to do the 1010 ATT Jimmy Jam and use my pre-recorded dial tones. I didn't have a beige box. I just had the pre-recorded dial tones like in the movie Hacker. And I was able to make long-distance phone calls or just phone calls in general by applying the tones to the phone. It really worked. You know.
So Matthew Broderick in the movie War Games, he did that as well. He was able to hack a phone.
Yeah. So my communication, I was threatened to get expelled for violating the computer conduct policy at my school because I was a bit of a.
Oh, look at
I was a bit of a hacker. So I was in the we put like a virus on all the computers. Not a virus. We were able to control all the eject ports, so we could eject all the CD-ROMs at the same time in the computer lab. Yeah, well, we were tripping.
Yeah, that. In a future episode, we'll have to talk about cyber crimes in the past. So
this is not a crime. It's not a crime. Let's get the lawyer on there, and I hope that again the statute of limitations is up on that stuff.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think the statute of limitations is up in some point.
Yeah.
We should be good. Fast. Yeah. So
that was my experience. I started off in high school with the phreaking. That's what they used to call it back then. And then with a PH, phreaking. And then I joined the Army for communications, and then so I worked with AJ's father at AT&D.
Yep.
And then Then I went to college for supply chain. And somehow, when I went to school, I went to flight school. I somehow got roped into working part time with T3, and then here I am. It's apparently I couldn't leave the Wiesner family here. I'm just part of the squad here.
It's full circle, Tony. It's full.
Circle. It's exciting. So
that's
what I do.
So last episode, now you do sales.
Yeah. Solution engineering is what we'll call it.
That's all sales is. That's all sales is solution engineering. So making people happy. So that's what it's all about. So last episode we talked about the work from home environment, and also the hybrid environment, and we put out some data, some key data that I found crazy. So
I'm a 12%.
Yeah, 12%. So today we're going to talk about the challenges that some business owners and businesses face with the work from home environment and also the hybrid environment, and pros and cons. And again, I'm not going to get into the debate whether it's ethical to work from home or not. I do understand that there are pros and cons both ways, and we all have our opinion on work from home, right? So
I think ethical would be a little bit too bold. I mean, it's
all right. Okay.
I think it's ethical to work.
I
unethical.
yeah. Well, yeah, that really depends on where you're at in the spectrum. Like, yeah. Is if you like,
yeah,
yeah, if you
it's controversial. Well, it doesn't have to be ethical.
right, controversial. Maybe it's a word. It's controversial. Yeah, because obviously there are some employees that we talked about in the last episode that can't work from home because of their job description, and then there are the employees that can work from home. It's, and the ones that can work from home are saying foo on you. So foo on you. You can. That's the way.
Would that be controversial to say foo on anybody?
That's no.
That's unethical. There.
No,
Say
I'm trying to keep it clean. It's a PG rated show, Tony. So okay, let's take a look at some data again. Well, actually, I don't have any data in this podcast. Let's go through what challenges that we face, even as people, but also as businesses, with a work from home environment and a hybrid work environment. Okay, so first thing is communication. Obviously, March 2020, everyone was in lockdown, and either you're unemployed or you worked from home. And obviously, dealing with this, changed the comfort level of employees with the technology that came along. And obviously with certain criteria. First of all, can I use that app? Do I know how to use Zoom? Do I know how to use my my app on my phone to communicate? Right. And then then there's that funny commercial. I forget who it was for, but there's a guy on a Zoom commercial, and he's wearing like a nice button-up shirt, and he stands up and he's in his boxer shorts. The camera, and that's still like a hot debate topic today, which one day we should like get into that. Do you turn the camera on or do you leave the camera off? And some people just aren't comfortable turning the camera on. Some people are comfortable with the camera on. So obviously in adapting to that landscape with communication. And the next thing is coordination, right? So it takes an effort to keep in sync with remote teammates. And it really does. And that's a challenge that we face even here at T3 to a certain degree. Like, I just can't walk over to Tony's office and say, and see that he's actually on the phone, and he can shoot up a hand at me and say 5, which means 5 minutes for those that know business lingo. And then I know to come back in 5 minutes at Tony's office. Obviously, with coordination now, you have to schedule out your appointments. So it's a challenge nonetheless, right? So that we face from a work from home and a hybrid environment. More so in hybrid, because you have some employees in the office and some that are on the remote. And then connection. So how do you maintain those social connections that you have with your coworkers and your employees? Like that they say that water cooler topics, right? And you go to the water cooler and you talk around the water cooler or your lunchroom. You get a little disconnected when you're not there in person. Or even that meaningful connection, such as someone's pet passes away. You can't put your hand on their shoulder and say, "I'm really, really sorry this happened to you." So, and there's that whole communication just through touch alone, which again, you get disconnected with the work from home environment. And next is creativity. Hybrid work could potentially harm both collective and individual creativity. And it really does. Some people feel isolated when they work from home, whereas you have a team collaborating in the office and you have that remote worker, they don't get to collaborate or get into the creative process with the team members are actually in the conference room talking. So again, you lose that creativity, and then obviously there's culture, and how. I guess the first thing is how do you keep your company culture alive from a remote standpoint? And again, these are just, I spend a lot of time researching, and this is what I've come up with for some challenges, and I'm sure there's more challenges that we face. But Tony, communication. Let's start with that.
I think that I'm glad you introduced all these topics kind of like right away, because I do know that there's a lot of overlap there, right? Like the
Yep.
same thing kind of drives all these problems. But
Right.
I remember when we first started this whole hybrid thing, um, we'd be bouncing between like Teams meetings or Zoom meetings. It's like whatever the customer might have had available. So like that was that back then. I think that's kind of been fixed now. I mean, Zoom and Teams are pretty much the only thing we're doing in terms of, there's still a little WebEx in there. Shout out to Cisco. There's still a little WebEx going on, but yeah, I think I remember that being like the first thing, and then like just actually learning the software. Like I remember we had the freemium Zoom, and I was on a call with a customer, and it went over 40 minutes, and it cut off.
Yep.
I had to like call them back, so that was huge. I think we kind of went past that. Those two challenges have kind of been like everybody has Zoom, everybody has Teams. If whatever invite you send them, we could kind of chat. Like that's not going to be a hindrance.
Yeah.
But
I think over time, over the past 3 years, people have accustomed to these applications. So now they're used to it, right? We had a customer the other day that had a problem with Teams.
Yeah, and they continue to get more and more intuitive. So it's,
they do.
That's not the challenge anymore. I think, the other challenges that are really like the bigger deal is like the culture.
Yeah. Isolation, the
the
creativity
aspect.
Yeah.
You'll get that friction of like working with other people so closely, right? You try to keep your meetings condensed and things of that nature. But like with culture though, at the same time, it's, it's kind of, culture's always like been a challenge for small business, right? Like you don't know, like, especially when it comes to hiring, like who you're going to get and if they're going to align with the culture. So it's really complicated when you have such a, like for us, we're pretty low density, right? Like there's only a handful of us here at T3, and I could see it not working for some people, but it's hard to tell. And then to do it remotely, really, you might only catch like whatever you might believe as the cons of that culture. You don't get that whole connectivity. I had the benefit of working in the office with everybody prior to traveling around as I am now. But I could see the challenges there. And I really don't know how you address those, to be honest.
And that's one of the topics that came up in my research is when you bring on new employees, how do you introduce them to the culture? Because from a work from home standpoint, they're not going to see, for example, the artwork you put on the wall, right?
Yeah.
So, or any sort of display that you have throughout the office that brings on an element of what you're doing at that company. Now, obviously, I'm not going to go crazy here and say that all offices have that environment, but you kind of disconnect that from a remote standpoint. So there's some of the challenges. I'm not going to say cons, but challenges.
I think the biggest gap is that if it's like if it's an employee that's not working with the customers directly, like some of our field technicians are, that they're really not going to get that kind of, none of their conversations are reciprocated, like from the customers that we're like accustomed to servicing. So like, I don't know, like it's a tough one, man. I don't know. Culture is crazy. Well, I'm kind of like I kind of like moved to small business because I didn't want to be in the office without like a clearly defined culture. Like, like companies now, I guess they have like core values and things of that nature. And like, that doesn't really resonate with me, So like, I think for me, it's more about kind of, being part of that company. You know what I mean? Like for us, we used to go to like show, like me, Mark, and Sean. Those are the other partners here at T3. We used to go to like shows at like Crocodile Rock or Crocodile Rock, but like that, like you don't have that connection. So that, I mean, that's a really good example because for a small company, like we don't have like these, canned core values that people say like might have at like a company. We just have like our values that are like just there, right? They're not like documented. They're not on that artwork that you were talking about. We don't have like billboards with like our company values on there. Like when you walk in the office, it doesn't like say like, you know, welcome to T3. Our core values are this. And maybe we should have that. But
in other respect, though, you know, I think the from an ownership standpoint, I do feel that you know, one of our core values is helping, right? No matter what it is, if it's an employee, if it's a coworker, if it's a customer, even sometimes our vendors. You know, sometimes we help them. Right. It's definitely going to be, you know, that sense of care and help to our customers. Right.
Really try to support. Yeah. So I don't think like for a remote work, like that's not an easy thing to convey.
No, it's not. It's not.
Especially if you're not interacting with these vendors, you're not interacting with these customers, like at like the contact point there, like really like on the ground. So
right.
I don't know. I don't have much to say. Like I think that definitely like, you know, back to the sales guy. You got to at least have the technology that is conducive to that connection. You know,
to that environment, right?
Yeah.
So, and then let's go into a flip side, right? So there's some pros, obviously working from home, right? From everyone's standpoint. So
yeah.
So let's talk about those real quick. The first one is the improved work-life balance. So before, especially like salaried employees, more so than hourly employee, but even hourly employees that work like crazy overtime. But yeah, those guys that were in the office, away from their families, commuting to New York City, right, or commuting to another city.
Or like for me, I was commuting from Philly.
Right. So that's got like
Philadelphia down to like. You know, the Lehigh Valley just to work. And
that's an hour and a half drive, right? So depending on traffic, right?
Yeah.
So that's 3 hours out of your day that you're not with your family.
Right. And I mean, like that adds to, like, it just adds to the bottom line as well. Because if I'm working overtime, I'd rather spend those 3 hours like working on deals, working on customers, solutions and stuff like that. So I think that, you know, that's a huge benefit. Really it is. There's so much less like downtime, you know?
Right. And then there's also greater flexibility. So obviously you're more flexible with your schedule from a work from home environment. I you know, and again, at T3, I don't think we had that culture that, okay, well, you need to go to the doctor at 1:00. So you have to punch out and punch in again. Just like what?
Yeah.
Hey, I got a doctor. All right, go ahead. But then again, from a work from home environment or a hybrid environment, you can hop on like a 5-minute call, like a remote call with a doctor and say, hey, I got a headache and I got my runny nose. Oh, yes, sinuses. All right, well, I'll call a prescription for you at the nearest pharmacy. So, and again, that offers that greater flexibility. Again, you would probably, do that at the office as well, especially from a remote medical session,
right?
But still, gives you that flexibility, right?
Yeah.
So next is next on the list of items that I found, and I did 5 for each. There were a lot, Tony. There were a lot of items to go through. So, boosted personnel well-being and productivity. So apparently, people are happier with a hybrid environment than even a strictly work from home environment. And this actually increases productivity. So some people work harder when they work from home.
Yeah.
And again, you have those bad apples. There's some people that are watching Netflix the whole time. But then again, you can watch Netflix from the office as well. But then again, as well, with a good IT support team, they can't watch Netflix from the office.
No, I mean, that goes back to the software thing. Like, you need the ability to measure and like have these metrics on like what people are doing and like
whatever. Exactly.
To be like I'd rather measure our metrics than like be measuring something based on like a mouse mover thing. You know, like,
Yeah, or a camera. Yeah, you're the camera.
like, yeah, I don't want to be like one-on-one with them. We're not here to babysit. Like, so you figure out like those metrics. Like for me as a sales manager, it'd be good to like have, which we do have, the ability to
Yeah.
see like how many outbound calls are being made, or how many emails are being made, how many touches with the customer are being made. But
With our integration, right? So next we got here
I do remember. I remember like when I was over at and sorry Tim, I keep touching my laptop. That was my knee. The the
we're new here, people. We're new.
yeah. The my I remember when I first like had that, I was really trying to get that work from home before COVID, before it was so I guess ubiquitous. It wouldn't be ubiquitous because we're only at 40% right now. But
Right.
I remember like when I had the work from home day, like I would go so hard. I wouldn't even watch the clock. Like it would be like 5:30 and I'd still be just grinding and just doing so much work. So I remember just like going all through it all, skipping lunches. You know, I wasn't like walking down to the break room because it was my house and I didn't have a break room. It was just like
Getting a cup of coffee or whatever.
yeah. Trying to find the water cooler, trying to have a good chat, like whatever.
A sidebar talk going on.
I do see, like, you know, wherever. Yeah, I mean, it's really a give and take.
Well, hold up, Tony, because that's actually on this list. So the next one is the irrelevance of location. So obviously, just like yourself, Tony, you're in California and you're working for T3. And you're performing sales, generating quotes from the West Coast on basically East Coast company. So again, same thing. Location now is irrelevant from a work from home position.
Right.
So you can almost, as long as your position allows for that. And then last, as you were mentioning, Tony, is fewer office distractions. So you don't have that knock at the door, with somebody want to come in and have a chit chat with you because they see you're not on the phone or.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a book called The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes. I recommend it for any salespeople that might be listening. But he I think like the very first chapter was like getting rid of like the 10-minute meetings. And this was like before this whole work from home thing. This is like a pretty old book. And he was just like, do not allow for 10-minute meetings. Like that really kills you. It kills your day. Like you have to and with my supply chain management background, like a big thing is like retooling or, like if you're setting up a manufacturing line, like to retool takes a lot of time. So like if I'm working on one particular project and then someone interrupts me and I got to have a 10-minute meeting with them, I'm retooling to get into this meeting. I'm retooling to get back into this meeting, back into what I was doing before, right? And like, we're not actually retooling in like the work that I do, but like my brain is retooling in a sense to like get back on track. And like the other thing that you mentioned, like I think a big thing right now, especially like post COVID, like where pretty much people were like, all these new terms came up, like quiet quitting. People had, like there was just there was so little unemployment, like there was such a big demand for jobs, like retention was huge, and like if you're a small company, my God, like if you have 10 people in your shop, and then you lose one, you're down to 9.
It's 10% of your workforce.
Hiring that takes up the resources of 2 people for X amount of days, weeks, or months. And then you have, then onboarding somebody, right? In a low density shop, you have to like train somebody. Like now you're losing your workforce is now 80% of what it used to be because you have one person tied up with training somebody. And like for who knows how long, like the onboarding, depending on the position, could be 3, 6, a year. Who knows how long it takes, right? So I think that like being able to offer the hybrid model, I mean, like that would be a great retention thing, right? So like if someone's quitting, you'd be like, why? They'd be like, oh, well, I found this job that's going to let me work from Indonesia. Well, all right. Well, listen, maybe we could figure that out. And like, it might not be great. It might have some upfront costs associated with it. I mean, quantitatively, like you could say man, now we got to get like a hosted phone solution so that they can be in touch. And then maybe like, we have to get a VPN configured for them. So like we could put a price tag on that. But
or
to the qualitative, it's like you got to learn how to manage someone remotely. But I think that cost is much cheaper to manage somebody that you've already worked with. They know their role, and you can kind of like accommodate them, and you just have to figure out how to like kind of keep track of them. And all these tools are here already. Those tools are already existing, and I mean, like I think like the cost of like implementing, whatever, putting in a sonic wall and a VPN client on a computer is a lot cheaper than losing 20% of your workforce for who knows how many days, right? And like, just hiring somebody in general, that is like a dice roll every time, so
but
you don't know how long you're going to get back to your old 100% standard with losing someone. So I think that's a huge one. Why not try the hybrid solution if you're risking losing someone to a company that's offering that,
It's true.